It was supposed to be a quiet Sunday dinner, just like the dozens that came before. Simple, predictable, with roast chicken and potatoes and a side of silence that we'd grown used to. I'd settled into the habit of these dinners, knowing the routine. Delilah would sip her wine with that tight-lipped smile. Sierra would scroll on her phone between bites, and I'd pretend everything was fine. But tonight felt different, like the air itself carried a static charge that threatened to ignite. Delilah sat, across from me in the same chair she'd claimed for years. Her posture, too perfect. Her eyes, too sharp. Sierra, 17 and already armed with her mother's disdain, twirled a strand of hair and eyed me like I was the punchline to a joke. I tried to focus on the food, on the way the chicken skin glistened under the overhead light, on the potatoes that smelled like butter and rosemary. But my appetite faded fast. Delilah set her wine glass down with a small, deliberate click. The sound somehow louder than the old clock ticking in the background. She cleared her throat. The practiced way she had when she was about to drop a verdict she'd been rehearsing all day. "We're cutting you off completely," she said, her voice flat, but her eyes alive, with a cold certainty, like a guillotine's blade coming down. No anger, just finality. I didn't flinch. I didn't even breathe. I watched her lips, that perfect line of lipstick she always wore when she wanted to feel powerful. Sierra didn't even look at her mother for permission. "Didn't hesitate. You're poor, lazy, and not a good father," she said. Her tone was casual, as if she'd just ordered a coffee. She didn't blink. She didn't fidget. She'd been waiting for this moment, ready to brand me with labels. That stuck like tar. I felt the room shrink. The table suddenly too small for all the unspoken words crammed between us. I looked at them, my wife, my daughter, sitting like they'd been cast from the same mold, both wearing that same expression that said, "We've decided what you are, and that's the end of it." I thought about the days I'd worked double shifts to keep food on this table, about the nights I'd come home smelling like oil and sweat. My hands cracked from labor, just to see them asleep with the lights left on. I thought about the time I taught Sierra to ride her bike in this very driveway, running alongside her with her laughter echoing through the neighborhood, like I was the best father in the world. But none of that mattered now. They'd made up their minds, sealed the file, passed judgment. I could have stood up, slammed my hands on the table, demanded they remember. But what was the point? Words had no place here, not now. Then, as if on cue, my phone buzzed on the table. It wasn't loud, but it sliced through the tension like a blade. I reached for it, my fingers trembling just slightly. A reflex born from too many late-night work calls that always carried bad news. But this wasn't that, Mr. Verbiden. The voice on the other end said, crisp, professional, but tinged with something I hadn't heard before. Excitement. "Your company's stock just hit $100 million. I blinked, staring at the phone as if it had grown wings. My mind raced through the math, the milestones, the blood and sweat I'd poured into Triarch Systems, the nights I'd sat up coding while Delilah slept. 100 million. My chest tightened, my breath caught, and I almost laughed, not out of humor, but out of something deeper, something that felt like a rope snapping free from my chest. I looked up at them. Delilah's fork hovered midair, her eyes wide, her face frozen, that perfect mask of composure cracking under the weight of something she couldn't control. Sierra's hand stopped mid-scroll, her eyes blinking like she'd just woken from a dream. The room fell silent. I didn't need to say a word, but I did. I lifted my eyes slowly. Let them rest on Delilah first, then on Sierra. I saw the confusion swirling in their eyes, the sudden realization that the man they'd written off as poor, lazy, and worthless had just become something else. something they didn't know how to handle. "Excuse me?" I said softly, my voice steady, every syllable deliberate. "You were saying something?" It was like the table itself shuddered. Delilah's lips parted, but no words came out. Sierra's face lost its practiced smirk. I let the silence hang there. Like a weight they'd have to carry themselves. I felt something shift inside me, something uncoiling, like I'd been holding my breath for too many years and finally remembered how to let it out. I wanted to stand up and walk out, but I didn't. I wanted them to sit there in the space they created, to feel every second of their own silence, to understand what they'd done and what they lost. So I just sat there, watching them. The man they thought they could cut off. The man they thought they could belittle into submission. My phone screen still glowed, the numbers dancing like a promise I'd kept to myself. 100 million. It was supposed to be a quiet Sunday dinner. But it turned out to be the night everything changed. The night I realized that the approval I'd been chasing for so long had always been conditional. That their love had strings attached to my income, my success, my failures. And in that moment, I didn't feel poor. I didn't feel lazy. I didn't feel worthless. I felt free. Hours when even I doubted my own sanity. But hearing it out loud felt like being hit by a train and carried 1,000 miles in one breath. Delilah's fork paused mid-air, a piece of chicken halfway to her lips. Her eyes darted to me, then to Sierra, then back to me, like she was searching for the punchline in a joke she didn't understand. Sierra blinked, her mouth hanging open, her phone forgotten on the table. I felt their eyes on me like spotlights. Felt the weight of every doubt, every insult, every smirk they'd thrown my way. I leaned back slowly, my phone still pressed to my ear. "Thanks, Dedra," I said, my voice steady, controlled. "That's great news." I ended the call, the click of the line hanging in the air like a gunshot. Then I looked at them both, really looked at them. Delilah, the woman who'd once held my hand and told me she believed in me. Sierra, the girl who'd once sat on my lap with her eyes bright, telling me I was the best dad in the world. I looked at them now and saw strangers. "Excuse me," I said softly, every word landing like a stone on water, rippling through the silence. "You were saying something?" The question hung there, daring them to pick up where they'd left off, to throw their